In every good anxiety therapy, at one point or another, there will be a confrontation. There will be a moment in which you have to face your fear. Because there is no better way to experience that you can cope with the fear, that you can live through the fear, and that after experiencing the first strong impact of the fear, eventually the fear will fade away and it might completely disappear. And the more often you experience that, the more often your brain will write new, let's call it safety memories. And many anxiety researchers are seeking ways to improve or to strengthen these new safety memories. And one very important impulse for that came from the psychology of memory. Because in many memory experiments, it could be shown that when people learn something new, the context in which they learn it plays a very important role. So for example, in one classic experiment, people had to learn word lists, and later on they had to rehearse these lists, but in one condition in the same room in which they learned it, and in another condition in another room which was bigger and which smelled different. And in this new room they were not able to rehearse that many words. And in another experiment, which is very famous, maybe you have heard about it, participants were learning words underwater, so they had to dive underwater, and later on some of them were asked to rehearse the words underwater, so where they learned the words, or above the water, outside of the water. And even in this circumstance they were able to rehearse more words in the context in which they had learned it, which in this study was underwater. So if we want to learn something new, for example, if we want to learn that a situation is not that frightened as we thought, it might be better to learn it in different contexts. And if this really works with anxiety as well, was researched by Bandarian Baluch and colleagues in 2015 in their study, exposure treatment in multiple contexts attenuates return of fear via renewal in high spider fearful individuals. So as you can tell by the title of the study, it was about participants who were very fearful of spiders. And for their therapy, they were exposed to spiders, but one group was exposed in different contexts, like for example, in an office situation, in a bathroom in which the spider was placed near paper rolls and shampoo, but also in a third context outside, where the spider was placed in a glass container in which there was some soil and some branches. So there were three contexts, whereas in another condition the participants faced the spider only in one context. But the number of exposures was the same for both groups. If we take a look at the results, it could be shown that directly after the treatment, in both groups, the fear had almost disappeared completely. So the exposure therapy, once again, was very successful. But interestingly, in a 4-week follow-up investigation, when the participants again had to confront a spider, it could be shown that those participants who before were exposed to the spider in different contexts, so in the office situation, in the bathroom situation, and outdoors, they now experienced much less fear when they were again confronted with the spiders. So in this group, the so-called return of fear was much smaller. So these experimental results tell us in order to build up a very strong safety memory in our brain, which tells us I can cope with the fearful situations, we should not only face our fear in one specific context, but in order to help our brain to generalize, we should face our fear in different contexts. So for me, for example, it meant when I was coping with my social anxieties, I was not only forcing myself to make such videos like this, but I also went to parties that I usually did not want to go to. I talked to strangers that I before was very fearful to talk to. I asked for directions. I randomly jumped into small talk, and all this really helped to learn, okay, my expectations were completely wrong. Usually people respond very friendly and they don't judge me the way I thought. But also for other kinds of fears, like for example, agoraphobia, it means that you shouldn't just face your fear at the supermarket, but you should also go to public places that you refused to go to for a very long time. You should go and take a ride with the bus in order to strengthen your safety memories. Because the more often you face your fear in different situations, the more your brain will learn to realize that these situations are in fact quite safe, or at least much safer than you thought. I hope you found this episode helpful, and if you want, we will see you next time.